Another restricted free agent officially comes off the board. Plus, the NBA has an investigation into Malik Beasley, and an NBA insider says Trae Young's future with the Atlanta Hawks is murky. We're going to talk about it all and more on today's NBA Central.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. One of the things I've been watching, I'm going to continue watching over the course of the season, is what happens with Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. Because I think if Trae Young does decide to opt out, whether it's this summer or he waits, or he picks up that option and waits till it expires at the end of next season, he's going to be one of the hottest names on the free agent market if he decides to do that. And while there have been things like Trae Young talking about his bit of hesitation and the gripes that he has with the fact that a max contract offer has not come with the Atlanta Hawks, within about a week after that, followed up and heard that the Hawks are going to wait and see what Trae Young looks like with this young core, and hopefully, Jalen Johnson stays healthy. And you want to see really what this team can do. They made some solid moves this offseason, and moves that should have them, especially with the Pacers and the Boston Celtics taking a bit of a step back this year, have the Atlanta Hawks able to contend for hopefully to avoid the play-in this upcoming year. But according to Tim McMahon of ESPN, he did say this: the long-term outlook for Trae Young in Atlanta is murky at the minimum at this point. This is the guy who has been the face of Atlanta Hawks for 7 years. There are question marks around whether this is going to, be a long-term marriage. And we'll see. He also says this presents an interesting scenario for competing teams. Now, Trae Young, as we said, he's already spoken out on the situation, and that the fact that he does want the Hawks to compete for something this upcoming year. Kristaps Porzingis, they added Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard. They're bringing Jalen Johnson back from injury, right? They drafted Asa Newell, a player that I don't know how ready he's going to be his rookie year, but he does shape up to add some more defense to that team and maybe some rim protection. This is a team that's set up to have really nice young pieces that they can build around going forward. The question now comes in at is that 26-year-old Trae Young and him still being the engine of the offense, is that still the route that they want to go, right? And that's it. Despite being in the play in the last couple of years, the Hawks have not made the actual playoffs since the 2022-23 season. And so they're looking to break that streak this year. And, they're in a solid enough position to be able to do that. The question then becomes about what does it look like with the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young, and can they figure out a future there? I still think the most likely scenario is that they sign him. If they decide to move on from him or not, they try to trade him, get some assets back, but they could very well look to go ahead and circumvent even waiting and maybe do that as soon as this trade deadline. Now, I don't think that's likely. I want to be clear here. If I had to put money on it, I'd still be more willing to bet that Trae Young is an Atlanta Hawk after this contract ends. He re-signs there, and they just figure it out, right? They don't have any type of player that can really replicate the way that he commands that offense. But you look at it, teams do like to try to avoid that second tax apron. And with Trae Young having an option next year for $48 million and more than likely looking to get a raise after that contract, it does raise some questions on, are the Hawks or any other team like these $50 million contracts? And while we're hearing them and getting them more and more and more, it still raises the question on how successful is the team that you can build around while you have a player of that type if they're not one of the top 5 or 10 players in the NBA. And that's what the Atlanta Hawks have to ask themselves. So we'll see what it comes down to it with Trae Young and the Hawks. I think it's going to be something that everybody's going to monitor and watch to see how it ends up going, because that option, if for some reason Trae Young decides to decline that option and gets out into the restricted free agent market earlier, that's going to be a question. Now, for what it's worth, the Hawks right now, even with Trae Young opting in, I think are about $66 million beneath the first tax apron, which is really good, for especially having a contract of that size of Trae Young's. But as you have to pay more and more players, like, you got to ask yourself, like, how fruitful can that continue to be for you and your franchise? And that's what the Atlanta Hawks are probably going to be asking themselves. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Let's get into the next topic. Josh Giddey has now officially signed a 4-year, $100 million deal with the Chicago Bulls. As you guys know, I am a Bulls fan. I typically try to steer away from Bulls topics here. But I do think that with now 2 of the restricted free agents coming to their conclusion, you got Cam Thomas taking the qualifying offer. You have Josh Giddey signing a new 4-year long-term deal with the Chicago Bulls at $25 million per season. He wanted 30. The Bulls wanted 20. They've met right in the middle on that contract. The number of years 4 is really good. It gets him back out in the market to where when he does hit the market again, he's able, to command more money if he plays well and lives up to this contract. But now the attention turns to Quentin Grimes and Jonathan Kuminga. And what's going to happen with these two guys now as being the restricted free agents left that everybody's watching and waiting? I've been saying for a while that I felt the way that this was going to go is that one of these guys was going to make their decision, and then you're probably going to see a domino effect happen a few days after that. Cam Thomas decided to take the qualifying offer. The Brooklyn Nets weren't really offering money that's hard for him to replicate if he goes out into free agency next year. Of course, injuries are a thing. We know that taking the qualifying offer, the Nets aren't going to necessarily be forced to prioritize him. Josh Giddey gets long-term money. Now, the question comes down to Jonathan Kuminga. And with Kuminga being in this situation with the Golden State Warriors to where he wants a player option if he signs a 2-year deal so he can decide to get back out in the free agent market after next season. And the Warriors want their security in that and have it as a team option, which could make it more easy to trade. And that's kind of what Jonathan Kuminga is trying to avoid in this. And if he takes the qualifying offer, he doesn't have a no trade clause, but he does have the right of refusal on any type of move, mainly because of it would be him giving up his bird right. So he has the right to turn down that move if he decides to do so. So I still think Jonathan Kuminga may bet on himself and take the qualifying offer. And it's a risky thing for him because he's already on the team with Steve Kerr, who has already showed that he can be very inconsistent in how he uses Kuminga. So I think that does provide a risk for a player like Jonathan Kuminga. But I ultimately think Kuminga's probably going to bet on himself. If I had to come down to it and take a guess, I would probably bet he's going to bet on himself, take that qualifying offer, and just not worry about it when it comes to the Golden State Warriors. But who knows? Maybe he may look at it, survey the situation, and say, hey, maybe 2 years isn't that bad. I get some guaranteed money. We can go back out there when it all comes in down. But we'll see. Kuminga's probably the next domino to fall. Quentin Grimes is an interesting one because I think Quentin's going to end up having to take the qualifying offer as well. But the last that we did hear, and this one did come down today, is that there is an anticipation of him taking the qualifying offer, that he is anticipated to take the qualifying offer. That comes from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, who did say that he is likely to accept the $7.9 million qualifying offer. To get that, he says this: there haven't been any indications suggesting that the Warriors are thinking of changing their offer. And unless they do so over the course of next week, Kuminga is prepared to end talks and accept the qualifying offer. So we'll see. I mean, it seems like everybody else kind of wants this done as soon as possible. Yes, the deadline to take the qualifying offer is October 1st. There's roughly 3 weeks left until you have to take that. But with training camps opening really in 2 weeks, you could see a lot of teams wanting to get that done, or a lot of the players wanting to get that done. And then when it comes to Quentin Grimes, it's an interesting thing for Grimes, right? Because, he came on late last season with the Philadelphia 76ers after that team had been ravaged by injuries, had himself a really nice run there, but Quentin Grimes hasn't necessarily been the player that you want to bet on as far as long-term money. So he may take the qualifying offer there as well, but we'll see. And the restricted free agency, it's going to be something to watch as years goes on in the NBA with all these free agents. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Last stop before we get up out of here. The NBA's investigation into Malik Beasley reportedly is nearing a conclusion. Now, this could be important because Malik Beasley, after no longer being the target of the federal investigation, of course, the NBA wanted to do their own investigation. And this could be the last step to teams wanting to take a shot at Malik Beasley when it comes down to it, because, there's not a lot of money out there for Malik Beasley anymore. But he was going to get reportedly a $42 million offer from the Detroit Pistons before all of this happened. Now that money isn't there for the Pistons. They can offer him $7.2 million, about half of what he would have made before this drama popped up. But there's a high probability he can use his bird rights, re-sign with the Pistons on a 1-year deal, re-up with them later after that. And if he has a big season, go ahead and continue it going forward. So we'll see. But the NBA is close to nearing its investigation. And the question then becomes about what is going to be the result of that investigation. Now, the guy that's running this, Steve Hanley, is the name of the attorney for Malik Beasley, and he did say this: that they are fully cooperating with this investigation by the NBA, and so they're investing, and that shows a level of confidence. And being a full participant in it could maybe get you a lesser sentence. It could be, show a good faith that, hey, I'm not doing what I'm accused of. I want to get this cleared up as soon as possible. Let me help with this so then I can get back to pursuing my NBA career. And that's really what it comes down to. I think once this investigation, whatever the results of it are announced, and we get something rather than he's being suspended, he's not being suspended, they're not pursuing anything, whatever the results of that end up being, and then you'll probably sign with the team shortly thereafter. That there are going to be teams that are going to be willing to take a shot on Malik Beasley because of everything that he did last year, breaking records, having one of the best three-point shooting seasons of NBA history that he was able to have. And even without that taking it away, he's still a really good shooter. And that shooting that he's able to provide is something that a lot of teams want, especially teams that are looking for some, at this point, he's going to be a reasonably priced veteran that can get in it and see what it has. So we'll see. Now, another investigation is also, the NBA is doing their investigation on Kawhi Leonard, and Pablo Torre is doubling down. He said that the doubters of the Kawhi Leonard reporting are going to have egg on their face when it's all said and done. That's an interesting thing. There also have been some reports over the last couple of days that, Kawhi Leonard actually sought some no-show endorsement deal with negotiations with the Raptors as well. So, I mean, watching this and see what it's going to have, man, it's going to be interesting. We did hear a couple of hours ago that Adam Silver is going to be meeting with the NBA owners to discuss the Kawhi Leonard situation. I don't know if anything is going to come out of that's officially announced or anything at that point in time, but it will have, Adam Silver will have a press conference afterwards as well, where we can expect to get something announced, whether it's one way or another. So there's a lot going on right now with the NBA, and I can't wait to see what the results of all this are, not just because of the drama, but I think that with this Clipper situation, the reason why the NBA has to strike hard if they find out anything, if they find out even a fraction of what Pablo Torre reported on is true, I think that the NBA has to have some type of action against this, because you have teams now avoiding the second tax apron, hearing that Kawhi Leonard and his agent may have even requested a no-show endorsement from the Raptors in their talks. And as you're in the second tax apron era where owners are wanting to avoid that second tax apron, who's to say something like this can't become more and more common? So the NBA has to act swift, and I do think they have to pass a judgment on this one if their investigation shows up anything close to what Pablo Torre showed up in his. But you guys can let me know how you feel on all that down below. That's my time. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything for everything NBA related. And like I like to end everything on, catch you guys when I feel like making another video. Bye tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.